Welcome back to Techvisa. This is episode number 10. And today we've got our general manager back on the mic to sit down with us and do a little industry update, discuss everything that's been going on in the world of Australian immigration. Welcome back.
Thank you, Zach, for having me here again. It's been a little while since we last talked. I'm always excited and happy to share with sort of our following, our clients and co-workers and colleagues out there with what's happening.
There's actually been a lot going on, right? A lot of updates, a lot of rumor. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to rewind, sit down, and clarify a few things that we've heard and seen come across our desks recently. So I thought today we'll have a chat about visa processing times. So a question that we get asked a lot here at Techvisa. We also want to give our listeners and viewers an update on the COVID visa as well, and hopefully ease their mind around all the speculation. I also want to chat to you a little bit more about the 485 postgraduate visa extensions and the course-specific eligibility criteria. We've also been inundated with questions around the 417 working holiday visa. So I think this would be a good opportunity for us to talk about the specific criteria around the 3-year grant period for UK passport holders. So processing times. Probably one of the most common questions we get asked here at Techvisa is, how long is my visa going to take to get granted? So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the current processing times and what we've seen on a day-to-day basis here. So as we know, the department have doubled their headcount. So we're seeing a lot more efficiency and visa processing times have been sped up. I want to get your insight into what you've seen around the 482 short-term, medium-term, but also the 186 employer-nominated scheme and the difference between the direct entry and temporary resident transition stream.
No worries, Zach. I mean, definitely number one question. Whether we're at the stage of preparation or after lodgement, the number one question comes out, so when will my visa come through? I mean, it's one for employers as well as applicants. So with the 42, we're not seeing any major differences between the short-term and the long-term. Or medium to long-term occupation list. Unlike before, there was a lot more focus on the medium to long-term occupation being more in demand and needed by the Australian sort of employer. What we're seeing is that, after preparation, the super-ready application is lodged. It's normally processed within 2 to 6 weeks from the date of lodgement. And the 186 is an interesting one. So you touched on the two different streams, which is, our common ones. As we all know, at Techvisa, our bread and butter is the 42 and the 186 program. With the direct entry pathway, it's actually a little faster. And once again, with accredited sponsors, it's probably done within 6 months from the date of lodgement, whereas non-accredited sponsors are still looking at a 12-ish month from the date of lodgement.
So moving on, the COVID visa, lots of rumor, lots of speculation about this. How much longer is it going to be around for? Talk to me a little bit more about this.
There's always been some rumor in the industry that it shouldn't be around much longer, but the key thing I think we want to talk about is that there's a lot of COVID visa holders in Australia. They said they will give plenty of notice to the industry. So stay alert, keep following us, and we'll, of course, send through any further updates that they receive.
So, and we know that there's going to be some new changes around the temporary skills shortage visa towards the end of this year, when they start offering permanent residency pathways for short-term 482 visa holders. Would this be the time period where they phase out the 408, the COVID stream?
I feel like that definitely would be a good timing as to when they phase it out. It's supposed to be a visa that people fall on if you have no other visa options. If they relax the rules for the future pathway towards PR, most people that are on the COVID visa being in Australia over the last 2 or 3 years probably have enough experience to meet the skill requirement for a 482 visa, and therefore go back into the standard programs, which obviously then have a pathway towards permanent residency.
Right, so there's been some exciting news around the 485 visa offering extensions, but there's specific criteria around these extensions. It's not for everyone. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the eligibility criteria here, Em?
So the 485 visa extension was implemented this financial year on the 1st of July. The department introduced a list of eligible qualifications. So they are Australian degree qualifications or higher, that are really specifically focused on STEM, which is the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, as well as healthcare and education.
There've been some changes around the working holiday visa for UK passport holders, and we've been getting an influx of questions around this 3-year grant period. So there seems to be a lot of rumor, a lot of speculation, a lot of confusion around this. So, Em, can you just clear this up for us? What does this 3-year grant period mean? Obviously focused on the UK passport holders.
The working holiday maker visa is still a yearly visa or one that's approved for 12 months each time you apply. So just to clarify, the current program still stands in that way. So you're eligible to apply for a second or a third one as a UK passport holder from the 1st of July this year, which is 2023. The eligibility age to apply for the first working holiday maker visa as a holder of a UK passport has increased from 31 to 35. That's the key thing. And then from the 1st of July 2024, second and the third one for the UK passport holders can be granted without needing them to do the specified work. And a UK passport holder can come to Australia on the first working holiday maker visa, then apply for a second one and a third one without needing to do the required prescribed work, which is really, really advantageous.
Exactly. And that's just one thing I want to highlight. It's not you apply for your first working holiday visa and then you get a 3-year grant period. It's 3 separate visa applications, but you no longer have to undergo the regional work or the farm work or prescribed work, what we know as. So the migration quota for 2023, 2024 has been released. Anything that stands out to you?
I mean, it's very much similar to the program year that just went by, which ended on the 30th of June 2023 in terms of the quotas or allotted places to each program. The good thing we were hoping for is that the Global Talent Visa program is still at 5,000 places, which is exactly the same as the last financial year. I want to touch on that because that's a part of our key offering at Techvisa as well. The Global Talent Visa used to have a priority triaging process that's no longer in place. If you thought about it but wasn't sure about what was happening, reach out, have a chat. We can obviously give you some guidance on the GTI visa if it's a suitable option. The one thing that is of interest is that the Western Australian government is now really coming to play. Before, with the state sponsorship program, Victoria and New South Wales were the key players, and obviously that's where all the jobs were, that's where all the graduates want to go. But Western Australian government have said now, as of this financial year, they have no application fee to lodge a 190 nomination. They are giving equal ranking if you lodge one from outside of Australia, interstate, as well as overseas. So what the Western Australian government is really trying to tap into is the brain of the graduates here in Australia as well as outside the country. And they are also giving prioritisation of invitations to candidates with an occupation in the Western Australian industry sector. As we all know, what Western Australia is famous for, the mining and the construction. So it's obviously those ones. So if you're there and that's your location or jurisdiction and that's where you're trained, reach out. So we might be able to share some light and give you some guidance on that. And there's also a reduced employment requirement for candidates that goes through the Western Australia building and construction industry sector occupations. So there is a list. It's not a big list, but there's still half of a list for people to potentially be attracted to Western Australia.
Permanent residency pathways through the 191. Talk to me a little bit more about this. It's open for business.
It was an option to allow short-term 42 sort of skilled visa applicants a pathway towards permanent residency if they were able to obtain a skills assessment on the 494 occupation list and be nominated by an Australian employer. So the employer-sponsored pathway, obviously, since then, have been running for more than 3 years, which now means that people are actually beginning to have access to the permanent residency leg of that program, which is the 191 visa you touched on earlier. The 191 is a permanent residency visa, does not need to be nominated by an employer. You just need to prove that you have worked and lived and studied in the designated regional location that you were approved for the 494, or areas that were covered by the 494 program at the time you were approved the visa. So that's interesting. That means some people have had to wait and sort of live in regional locations for quite some time. The industry is reporting there's still no sort of published figure yet because it's still quite new to open to not many to apply. But soon, hopefully before the end of this year, we'll see some statistics as to how quickly they're being processed. But the industry's reporting was actually picked up by the government quite quickly for processing. So, that's the standard, proving the 3 years, health, character.
I know you're busy. Thanks for your time. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for all the latest in Australian immigration news. Until next time.